All right, so we're gonna go ahead and talk about the Switch 2 and everything that's been going on with Nintendo. So it was one of those things. I was kind of wanting to go into detail about some of this stuff the past few days, but there's just been so much information that's been going on in regards to Nintendo and the direct that happened last week, the responses they've been having by fans, and it's been a lot. It's been a whole lot. So obviously there was, the direct that went through. There was the backlash they had gotten from fans because of the fact that the prices for the games were too high. Now, from what I've been hearing, I think it was yesterday or the day before, supposedly the pricing for Super Mario World isn't quite what it seems. From what speculation and what people have been stating here and there, is that the $90 was actually for Europe. Now, there's still some information coming out. They're still trying to figure out what's going on with it exactly, but supposedly it's been stated that $80 should be the definitive price for Mario Kart Worlds. So we're still gonna have to wait and see when it comes down to that and see what the deal is in that regard. And then, of course, there was the whole issue they had with the Treehouse stream that went through with Nintendo, where they were getting bombarded by just a whole bunch of people that were just constantly putting in the chat, the live chat, lower the price. And I thought it was actually pretty funny. It is one of those things. Nintendo fans are pissed, man, and I mean, I feel like at this point, I feel like they have good reason to be, because of the fact that Nintendo was kind of shady about the direction they decided to go when it came down to the direct, as well as giving the information of what's to come as far as pricing goes. So that was going on the past few days, and then on, I believe it was Friday, it was it was stated by Nintendo that they were actually going to be holding off on the pre-orders due to the information regarding tariffs and Donald Trump's tariff ruling and everything like that with different countries. Now, from my personal opinion, I don't think that's why they decided to do a hold on pre-orders and everything like that. I think it was one of those things, they seen the backlash they had gotten and they know what's going on even though they haven't stated anything. I genuinely believe that they know what's happening right now with the fans, the backlash they're receiving and everything, and they decided to hold off on pre-orders and everything like that, try to get things figured out and situated, and then ended up using Trump as an excuse on why they decided to do that. I could be wrong, but I genuinely don't think so. I think that they were wanting to do this to begin with, but with Trump's tariffs and everything like that, they had an excuse and a scapegoat to kind of use in that regard. So pretty much, I think it's a crock of shit from them, because I feel like Nintendo is very meticulous and they're very particular with how they do things. Like they're strategic when it comes down to how they go about their business. So I feel like this was something they weren't expecting, the backlash from fans. I think that they probably were expecting some backlash, but I don't think they were expecting it to be as bad as it was. So with them, canceling, well, holding off on pre-orders just for now in the US, I think it was one of those things they decided, you know what, since Trump's in office, we'll go ahead and kind of use that as an excuse while we try to get things figured out and situated. There's some rumors out there that it's actually going to be coming at a higher price instead of the 450, but I personally, I don't think they should do that. I feel like 450 should be the capping price, because of the fact that the information has been coming out that's been showing that the Switch 2, although it is an upgrade from the Switch 1, it's still lower than the hardware that you'd get for, let's say, like a base PS5. So with that information coming out, I feel like that's just going to upset people and it's not going to rub people the right way. It's going to piss a lot more people off. So that's just one of the, a few of the things. I mean, pretty much what I'm going to be doing is just going through each tab that we got here and just kind of going over the information. So yeah, so obviously, like I stated, we got the one regarding Trump's tariffs. So Nintendo delays Switch 2 pre-orders in the US due to Trump's tariffs. That was one of the articles that we had seen. So Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders date delays because of Donald Trump. So again, I just think that these are all a scapegoat that they're using at this point to try to mask what their intentions are at the moment, because they're trying to figure everything out. And then we got this last one right here. So Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders delayed in the US so Nintendo can assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. So yeah, I genuinely, I mean, like I stated, I could be wrong, but I think that they're just using that as an excuse. And then one of the other ones that we had received here, so gamers in one country may get the Switch 2 way cheaper. So this is some information that had came out with, Japan getting the Switch 2 at a cheaper price. So instead of the 450 for the states like everyone else and a lot of other countries that are having to pay more, because I believe Canada's is even more than that. Europe, they're having to pay more. Japan is actually getting the Switch 2 at $340. And speculation is stating that the reason that that's happening for Japan is because of the fact that it's going to be region locked, meaning that it's going to be a Switch 2, but it's going to be all in Japanese. You're not going to be able to switch through languages like you can with the Switch 2 that you'll be getting in the US as well as in other countries. So they're supposedly it's going to be cheaper for them because of that reason, which is a really weird thing. And a lot of things that people have been stating is kind of stupid because of the fact that, the Switch One and a lot of other consoles and just things in general have it so that you can switch languages however you want to. So the fact that they're using that in regards to why they're going to be making it almost $100 cheaper in Japan, it's a weird one, and I feel like a lot of people are out there that are finding out this information. They're not buying it. They don't think it's kind of gives it enough of a reason to kind of have the price be like that in regards to other countries. And it's pissing a lot of people in the States off that have figured this information out, because it does feel like Japan feels as though, oh well, in the States we'll just charge up and then they'll pay for it because they got such a big fan base out there. So those are one of the other things that's been going on. So Nintendo Switch 2 fans will have an easier time pre-ordering the Switch 2. And then this just goes into information in regards to people that want to pre-order the Switch 2, what the requirements that will have to be done. So it is one of those things, you do have to have a Switch membership for at least 12 months, and then 50 gameplay hours will be prioritized, which is a little bit weird. And you know what I mean, it does kind of suck for certain people because of the fact that, let's say like myself, I know I at least have 50 hours of gameplay with a Switch One, but I don't have a membership with them. So it is one of those things, I don't personally feel like I need a membership because, like I've stated before, I'm a retro gamer. I have all my old Nintendo consoles, so I don't really need to be, playing the NES online or 64 games or GameCube games for that matter. Like I stated with the video in regards to the Switch 2 being released, I wasn't really excited about the GameCube coming to Nintendo Online because I still have my GameCube. I have my GameCube and I have a really big collection of games that, doesn't leave me wanting to kind of go off and play that on the Switch 2 online. So, the fact that it's required to have at least 12 months. Personally, I'm not planning on pre-ordering the Switch 2 anyways, but if it was one of those things I wanted to do, it would be a little bit unfortunate. And then one of the other articles over here we got, so Nintendo explains how backwards compatibility works for the Switch 2. So this is an article I was reading up on, and this is a little bit of a weird one because it is one of those things where it seems like the Switch 2 isn't going to have Switch 2 games specifically. It's going to have Switch 1 games that are going to come with a code to be able to upgrade to the Switch 2 graphics and everything like that, which is a little bit weird. And that's another thing that's been rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. And it's been causing a lot of controversy because people are getting irritated of the fact that Nintendo is making it seem as though, oh, you're going to get these physical copies, but it isn't really physical copies you're getting. It's going to be, at least for the Switch 2, it'll be pretty much from what it sounds like a Switch 1 game, but you're going to get a code that you're going to have to download online. So at that point, it really has a lot of people questioning, like, is it really a physical copy or is it going to be a download code, which technically would be considered, something online, which is a little bit weird. So that's one of the other controversies that's been going on with Nintendo in that regard. And then certain Nintendo Switch 2 features require an update to work at launch. And then this one just goes into the fact that when you get the Switch 2, it is going to need an upgrade in order to use the micro SD express cards, as well as the fact that it's going to need an upgrade for the surround sound effects built-in speakers. Now, this isn't anything I've really heard people talking about. This isn't one of the things that's been really causing too much of an uproar, but it is a little bit weird that stuff like that isn't kind of built in the system as it is, that you are going to have to go do an update on it. That is a little bit strange, from at least in my opinion. And then one of the other things I've been seeing a lot of people have irritation with is the fact that the Switch 2 welcome tour has a price. So it's pretty much the demo on how the Switch 2 is supposed to work. It's instead of being able to have it for free, you're gonna have to pay, I believe, let me see right here, $6.12. So $6 for a demo. And that's one of the things that has been really irritating a lot of fans out there because of the fact that Sony themselves, when they did not Astro Bot, but just kind of like the little demo where you can play as the Astro Bot when you first get the PS5, that was included for free. So, any type of demo, especially when it's something that's going to be explaining the console and the things you're going to have to be doing, like learning with it, that's going to be one of those things where a lot of people they don't want to pay for something like that, especially a demo. So, the fact that they're charging for it is really irritating a lot of people and it's pissing a lot of people off because of the fact that it just feels like Nintendo is trying so hard to just nickel and dime so many people out there for little things like a demo, which is really weird. And then one of the next things we got here, so physical Nintendo Switch 2 edition games are seemingly OG Switch carts with codes, not great. So pretty much back to what I was explaining with this article right here, where it talks about, yeah, it's gonna be one of those situations where you know you're getting a code as opposed to just a physical cartridge that you can just plug into the Switch and play. And that's been one of the things that's been irritating a lot of people because they've been stating how one of the things that made Nintendo so great as opposed to, let's say, Xbox and PlayStation was the fact that even though that yes, they would have some updates here and there, you can at least still put your cartridge into the Switch and bam, you can go ahead and play the game almost right away. So the fact that it seems like that's going to be changing up with Nintendo, it's really rubbing people along the wrong way, myself included, and it's something that it's just I personally I do not like. And then here's the two. Let me just read these two articles. So physical Nintendo Switch 2 edition games are reportedly Switch 1 carts with codes in the box, and then Nintendo Switch 2 upgrades of Switch 1 games are getting physical releases, but nobody's sure if these are Switch 2 cartridges or old games repackaged with digital upgrade codes, which is, I don't know, man. That's really weird. And it has me at least wondering too, like if it's gonna be a Switch One game, are you gonna be able to play it on your Switch One, or is it gonna be one of those things where it's different so that the Switch One can't play it, but it's technically just gonna be a Switch One game for the Switch Two? So it seems like Nintendo is kind of going more into the digital realm when it comes down to games instead of actually having physical copies of the games. And if that's, like it's stated, nobody's sure yet as far as any details on that. But if they are going to start going more into the digital realm as opposed to actually being able to own the cartridges with the games in them, then personally, I think I'm out with Nintendo. And that's something I never would have thought I would be saying, especially like, just a few, like 2 weeks ago. I didn't think that was going to be the case because I figured that it's Nintendo. You know what I mean? They're gonna have physical copies of their games for the Switch 2, and it's gonna be something you can just plug right into the game and you can play right away. You don't need internet to try to update the graphics or update it to a Switch 2 type of version. You can just go ahead and play it as it is. But it seems like from a lot of the information that's been coming out, that's not going to be the case. And if they're gonna have it so that you have to like update it with a digital code, go online and everything like that, then I think I'm gonna be out. As much as I love Nintendo, as much as I love playing, Legend of Zelda games and everything like that, I'm not a fan of digital gaming. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've purchased some games in the Nintendo store digitally on my Switch, but for the most part, I like being able to have physical copies of the games. I'm a game collector. Like I've stated, I have so many different retro games. I still have my Super Nintendo, GameCube, Wii U, and then the Switch. And then even with like PlayStation, I have a PS2, PS3, PS4, and then a PS5. So I like being able to actually collect physical versions of the games. If they're going to start switching it so that it's all digital, then I'm out as a gamer as far as like current day gaming, because that's one of the things that I had mentioned when it came down to PlayStation, was that supposedly there's been rumors out there that the PS6, whenever it does come out, is going to be all digital and it's not going to have any physical games. And if that's the case, I stated it with PlayStation that I'm going to be done playing, modern day gaming and everything like that with consoles. And if this is the direction that Nintendo is taking, then that's the direction that I'm going to be heading. I'm going to be out. I'm not going to, unless you can actually have a physical copy of the game, then I'm good. I don't want to be doing digital. I'm not a fan of it. And then the last tab we got here. So why hasn't Nintendo responded to the Switch 2 pricing backlash? They're so out of practice doing this. Former 90 PR staff suggest. So this was a big one right here, was that there was a lot of people before Friday that were like wondering what's going on with Nintendo. Why haven't they made any statements with the treehouse information that's been coming out? They didn't make any statements in regards to the pricing or nothing, but they came back with the information of waiting it because of the tariffs. Now, people inside of Nintendo have been stating that yes, this is they Nintendo knows what's up. They know what's going on. They know that the fans are pissed. They just haven't decided to make any type of statement yet. Now, with them doing the whole tariffs thing, that obviously that had a lot of people with speculations and wondering what's going on. I think they're holding their cards really close to the chest just to kind of see what they can kind of do to kind of salvage some of this backlash they've been getting. But yeah, the fact that they haven't made any statements, I feel like they're really trying their best to be careful with what they come out with next, because of the fact that this has gone so bad with so many Nintendo fans out there. They're not sure which direction it'll go, if it'll kind of help them or it'll end up hurting them. So again, as usual, like I usually state in these videos, who knows at the moment? Only time will tell. When we do get more information, obviously I'm going to try to keep you guys up to date and kind of figure out what's going on in that regard. But as far as the way that things are going right now, this is a really weird one, and I'm curious, man. I'm really curious as to what's gonna happen in the future with Nintendo and its fans, because I feel like at this point they felt like they were kind of on the high and mighty, where they couldn't do no wrong with their fans because they have so many like Nintendo fanboys and everything like that. Because of the fact that with a lot of these issues with these tabs that I've been going through, there were certain individuals I had seen online that were trying to defend them when it came down to some of these topics, as far as like tariffs, the games being digital instead of physical, some of the demo games, like just people that were trying to make it seem like, oh, it's not that bad, or this is fine, but it's really not, man. There's a lot of people that are upset, and they have good reason to be upset. So who knows? Just got to give it some time, see what happens, and then maybe Nintendo can come back from this. But at this point, it's looking really bad on them. So see how it goes. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Are there any of these tabs that I was going through with some of the information that I mentioned that is, people, you guys have your thoughts on it and you're kind of upset, or you feel like it isn't a big deal? Whichever one you feel, whichever side you're on, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And yeah, if you guys could like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys have been watching this long, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And yeah, until next time, Harmonic out. Peace.